Welcome to Gen Z Hoops, the Gen Z basketball, coaching, and sports business show. On this podcast, you'll learn from professional players, coaches, and executives from all over the world and see the court in a brand new way. And now, joining you courtside, your Gen Z host, John Hartofilis.
Coach Buckner, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. Super excited to have you on, and it's been really awesome communicating with you, getting to set this up, because it's really just awesome to talk to someone that's coaching a team that's really on the rise this year and seeing all the cool stuff you guys are doing. To just start off our conversation, just kind of even before all this coaching stuff, you had a really amazing basketball career. If you could just tell us a little bit about that. I mean, getting drafted in 1998 to the Mavericks with one of the top 5 all-time leading scorers too. Obviously, a lot of stuff was going on at the time. What was that getting drafted like for you?
Yeah, well, first of all, my kids wouldn't say I had an amazing career. They just said I had a career, to be honest with you. They always mess with me a little bit about how sorry I was in the NBA. But for me, it really was truly an amazing time at the time when I did get drafted. Didn't know anything about, like you said, Dirk, who would end up being, one of the top 5 scorers of all time, who ended up being one of the greats, probably a top 20 player of all time when it's all said and done. But, just to get drafted, so many people want to get drafted. Never was my dream to play in the NBA. My dream was just to get a college scholarship and then to get a college degree and then go back home to Kentucky and see where that gets me. And then when I got to Clemson, it just was one of those things where I played well and people I started hearing buzz about maybe I can be an NBA player. And then, I went after it. And fortunately and blessed enough to get that opportunity to play in the NBA.
Of course, I would never call a 10-year career is definitely a great career in NBA. It's very difficult to do that. Not a lot of guys can. Those lottery picks come out after 2-3 years, so definitely
exactly. Yeah.
I would definitely.
My kids are young; they don't know. But that's what we play games with each other. They're jokesters, just like I am. I think when they get older, they appreciate that.
Maybe they expect you to score 30 points a game like LeBron, but obviously it's not always like that. It's definitely always like that. During that 10-year career, whether it's the different stops you were going to, what was kind of like that life as an NBA, whether it's a journeyman or just someone that was just going through the league and playing so many different roles on so many different teams? Like, where did you see kind of your career progress as you were going through it?
Oh, well, I saw, in the very beginning, not knowing if I belonged in the NBA just because, you get drafted. Some teams tell you they're going to take you in the first round. They don't. Their picks keep going and going and going. And then, Dallas, who drafted me, I never worked out for, never communicated with them, never interviewed anything with them. And, they took a flyer on me. And then the first day of training camp, they signed a couple other guys, give them guaranteed contracts. You go in there, they got 17 guaranteed contracts and only can keep 15. And then, them making a promise that, we're going to release you, but we're going to bring you back and you're going to be a part of this franchise for a little bit longer. And they did that, and I had the opportunity to learn from some great vets, some great coaching from different stops, from Larry Brown to, George Karl to Avery Johnson. Michael Cooper, who I looked up to as a young kid, watching him playing with Magic Johnson against Larry Bird. They've been around Kevin McHale, in Minnesota. So, met so many great people and had so many ups and downs, been released. I think Dallas released me 3 times in my career. I think it was something like that, something crazy. And then, playing on one of the best teams in the NBA with Dallas one year, we got beat by Golden State. So many ups and downs. But that's just part of the NBA, and you learn and live and enjoy the life of being an NBA player.
Especially when it comes to your playing career. That's why your story is so interesting, thinking about someone. It's so, like we said, it's so hard to play 10 years in the NBA when you're a lottery pick, let alone someone that comes in the late second round has to work for literally every single year, every single week, every single month to really get that opportunity. And you did that, which is awesome. Going away from your career, what kind of made you, once you stopped playing, really, did you always know you were going to go into coaching? Was it something that you figured out when you were playing? How did it happen? Was it a spur of the moment?
Boy. Yeah, my first 7 years, I had no idea that I would coach. And then my 7th year, I ended up going back to Dallas, leaving Denver, going back to Dallas. And we're 67-15, I think it was, something like that. And, we lost the first 4 games, just trying to get the kinks out of our armor. So then we just go on this crazy, crazy tear. And nobody could beat us that year but Golden State. So we played Golden State in the playoffs. They beat us. Avery Johnson at the end of the season wants to make some changes. Didn't think I was offensively good enough to be in a rotation that could win a championship. And they decided to move me on to Minnesota. And this is the year that Minnesota had got rid of Kevin Garnett. So they was in total rebuild mode, total rebuild mode. I get there and we're just young. And it just kind of was thrust upon me to be the coach in the locker room, to be the coach on the floor when I did play. And then they traded me that offseason to Memphis and they was rebuilding as well. So I had to do the same thing. But I was tired of that. I was like, I'm not doing that. So I retired. You know what I mean? I probably had 3 or 4 more good years in me, to be honest with you. But at that point, I was just like, I'm tired of being on losing teams. Because after you've been on a team like Dallas where every night you're going in there, you're winning games, you're kicking tails at high level, no matter who you play, you know, you still got opportunity to win. And then I'm playing and in the rotation. I'm in Dallas where most of my family was at the time. So I was just enjoying life. And then to get hit with those 2 teams that was rebuilding, I mean, it was just difficult. Probably the 2 hardest years of my life, other than my adult life, I should say. So I was just tired of it. So I retired and just started hanging out with my son and my nephews. And we started me and my brother started an AAU program. And we just started coaching those kids. And then Kevin McHale got the Houston Rockets job. And I called him. He was my general manager when I was in Minnesota. I called him and said, you know, Mac, I've been doing this coaching with these kids. My last 2 years, I kind of was a coach in the locker room. And, you know, if you get that, you know, a chance, I'd like to interview with you. And I'm not asking you to, you know, promise me a job, but just let me interview, start that process, let people in the NBA know I want to coach. And he, you know, was like, you know, just come on up to Houston, Buck. I got a job for you. We'll start you off at player development. Then you'll work your way up into being on the front of the bench. And he was a man of his word. He gave me the opportunity, and that's how I got into coaching.
It's amazing to think that when you at the beginning, when you were talking about just going from maybe a 60-win team to a team that's winning in the teens, it's incredible to think about that. And even some of your coaching stops have been where it's one big move. And like, for example, the Rockets, you guys go from not having James Harden to having James Harden, which changes a lot of things for a franchise.
Right.
I mean, what did you say? Because you were doing player development in Houston, and then worked your way up to being an assistant coach. How did that timetable work out with kind of the Rockets going from maybe not making the playoffs to getting James Harden to now you have Dwight Howard? How did that all play out?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the first year I was player development. It was the lockout year, the second lockout year. So, you know, the season just flew by. And then that summer we had a good draft. We drafted Jeremy Lamb, Terrence Jones, and Royce White. And then we got a trade with Monty Eunice. So we had some really good young pieces and a good core. And we still had Kevin Martin on the team. And you know, it's one of those situations. We was the last game in the preseason, man. I was just talking about this the other day with Coach Bickerstaff, and we was talking about it with the other coaches, how we was doing our last game, and we had Jeremy Lamb out there, and we was trying to get him ready for the season because we knew we was going to have to depend on him a lot. And we got a text while we was doing the game and said, take Jeremy out the game. We've made a trade for James Harden. We can't allow him to get hurt. So we took him out the game, and you know, we get James Harden. That first game of the season, James Harden has like 40 or something crazy. We was like, oh, boy, we got an excellent chance to be really good, you know, because you're only good as your players, especially your star player. And he really took us to another level. And then when he, you know, came about and Coach McHale, he just bumped me up and made me an assistant coach. It's just one of those things that, you know, he just wanted to see how serious I was about basketball, make me do about coaching basketball, I should say, make me do the groundwork of player development. And then he gave me that opportunity.
The story of Harden's game, I remember when it happened. He had 45 against the Pistons. I think it was Skip Bayless who went on TV the next day and said, something yelling over to OKC, you blew it, like making that trade. It literally was just so apparent. It was on the first night. That team too. I mean, it was fun. I used to love watching that team, especially when you guys got Dwight Howard. You guys had a great 1-2 punch. I mean, you guys had some guys, which I'm really curious about. Guys like Troy Daniels, who, and especially now, it's kind of more. We kind of see it more often where guys maybe from the G League get their opportunity. Or guys that are late second round picks are able to develop and get that opportunity. Maybe back 20 years ago, it wasn't the same way. But how did you see a guy maybe like Troy Daniels really come in? He really had the game when he shot that one big moment. But what happened before that to lead up to that?
Yeah, it was one of those things where, I mean, Troy Daniels was one of those guys. He was, like you said, I'm not sure if it was the D League at the time or the G League, whichever one, the same league, just different name. And Daryl Morey loved shooting, and Troy Daniels could really shoot it. And it was one of those things like, you guys are taking Troy Daniels, whether you like it or not. And he's like, okay, you're the boss. I mean, we're not going to fight it. He never played, never got an opportunity, really didn't know, hadn't proved to the coaching staff that he could play. So wasn't like we was trying to develop him to play, you know, in the playoffs or anything. It was just one of those deals where we needed a bump. I think Portland beat us twice at home in the playoffs. We had home court advantage. They beat us game 1 and game 2, and we just needed something, some kind of spark. And then, we go up to Portland, tough place to win a game, almost impossible to win a game. I think we won the first game, had an opportunity to win that second game, really should have won it. And, I think Troy I think he won game 3 for us, if I remember correctly, because we just threw him out there. And, when you can shoot the ball like he can, and very new, nobody knew about him, and, he gets wide open shots, and he knocked him down for us. And it was a big boost for us. And, game 4, we still had a chance. And I think we made a couple bonehead plays down the stretch that they took advantage of. But it wasn't like we was trying to develop Troy Daniels to be a big-time rotation player. He just was at the right place at the right time when we needed a spark. And he took advantage of that opportunity. And, I think he ended up – not sure if Troy's still in the league, but he ended up with a nice little contract from a couple teams that he probably wouldn't have got if he wouldn't have been able to play in that playoff series.
100%. He was playing until just last year. And it's funny. It's interesting because when you say like something like, we just put him out there, very often does that happen. And very, very, very rare does that happen in the NBA, but also very rare than that it actually works out. Someone makes the shot of their life. And that shot definitely made him multi-millions of dollars as opposed to if that shot didn't go in. It's crazy to think about.
Yeah, for sure. It's one of those things where, most of the times the coaches, guys come from the G. It's a little different now. People come from the G League and, guys, they get an opportunity to play. But back then, you really had to shine in practice. And, in practice later on in the season, you don't really get too much up and down competing to see how good a guy is. You know what I mean? So he was lucky. We were lucky to have him right there and to be able to make that shot and be able to thrust him out there, because not many coaches would have gave him that opportunity. We would have went with some other vet in the playoffs. We'd have, if we would have had another vet, to be honest with you, that was playing better. We exhausted all options in the playoffs that year, and he was the last guy, and he took the most advantage of it, to be honest with you.
Definitely. And then I kind of like this theme of underdog stories or comeback stories that we're kind of going under. But then the following year, you guys are down 3-1 to the Clippers and win that series in a really improbable fashion. So I feel like this is just a theme. I feel like everywhere you go, it's just a recurring theme. What was it like after game 4 going down 3-1? What was that locker room like, and how did that play out?
Oh man, it was crazy because, to be honest with you, at that year, the Clippers was a better team. They was more talented. They was more seasoned. They was more ready to go to the next level. At least, everybody thought they were, but we had an opportunity. We was down big in game 5. And again, Coach McHale had the guts, to say, you know what, James, have a seat. Because James wasn't getting it done. He had the guts to put him down, and we put guys like Corey Brewer, Josh Smith, I think it was Trevor Ariza, Jason Terry, and Dwight. And they went out there, man, they was like, there's no way we're going to lose this game. And we felt like if we won that game, we was probably going to win the series. And it was one of those opportunities where Dwight ended up being a champion, Jason Terry and Corey Brewer are champions, Trevor Ariza has championships. So those guys had championship DNA. So they wasn't going down without a fight. So they just kept going. Kevin McHale kept asking us, do we put James back in? We was like, no, we can't mess up this mojo. We'll save James for the next game. And it worked out for us. So those guys took us all the way home, and we won that game. And then, once you lose a game like that on your home court, the Clippers didn't have a chance of beating us in the next 2 games.
Definitely. It was surreal watching seeing that game happen. And the momentum switch was wild. It must be some sort of record maybe for but time score, but also just the time in the series.
Because they was completely dominating us the first 3, 2.5, 3 quarters, maybe even 3.5 quarters. And that group just got out there and said, man, we're not going out like this, and they fought. And, the basket gets tighter, gets smaller for them, gets wider for us. They're on their court. It was flyers floating around and what they're going to do in the Western Conference Championship and things like that. And these guys like, no, you're not going to do that on our watch, and make sure that those guys went home.
No, awesome. And while you're with the Rockets, obviously with Coach JB Biggerstaff on staff, we kind of mentioned before about kind of how relationships are so vital in the NBA landscape. What did that relationship kind of look like, and how did it kind of progress to where now you're with the Cavs and doing all the cool things there?
Man, if you talk about Minnesota, we go all the way back to Minnesota. JB was my rebounding coach, and he was a guy that worked me out. He was a guy that watched film with me while I was in Minnesota, and it was one of those relationships where we just developed that bond. We hung out off the court. We ate lunch, we ate dinner. Just one of those things with player-coach relationship that normally doesn't happen, to be quite honest with you. And, he took me on his wing as far as that as a coach player, and then I kind of took him on his wing because he's younger than me, has been a big brother. He has a couple big brothers, but we was together so much that we became brothers. And then we both went to Houston with Mikal because of our Minnesota connections. One of those deals where Mac only had 2 hires, and the management hired the other guys, and me and JB was those guys who was Mac's guys, and we just spent so much time together in Houston trying to develop the defense. Then we got on the offensive side and tried to develop the offense. And then when they fired Kevin McHale, he became head coach. And it's just like he leaned on me for so much that we developed that bond of being even closer. And then he got the Memphis job. We did the same thing. And now here in Cleveland, we're doing the same thing, trying to, develop a culture of winning, a standard of winning, and have consistent winning regardless of who's in that locker room. We expect to win.
Definitely. And obviously, that's what's been. Cleveland's been having a really fun year this year. You guys started off super hot, winning your first few games. I was really super happy, excited to see that happening for you guys. Then there was a little bit of a dip, and now you guys are back on track a little bit. What do you kind of? What was that kind of maybe early stretch like, where you guys were winning a bunch of games, lost a few, back to winning, and how do you see that continuing?
Yeah, as just part of the NBA, I mean, I think what we always try to do in training camp. We always try to have our guys in great shape because we want to come out really early and try to steal some games from some teams that don't expect us to be really good. And that's what we did early on in the season. And we played hard. We played together. Our defense was very tight. We generated a lot of offense off our defense. And then the injury bug hit us. I mean, we played about 5 games without a point guard and, without Darius, without Dante Exum, who's still out, without Collin. And, we had Damian Dotson at the point guard who's been a 2-guard his whole life. He, even when he was in high school, he said, I never played point. And that's very rare for an NBA guy to never play point and to be on a perimeter. So he had never played point. So, we got guys out of position. Then the Drummond thing happened. So it's just the team is all over the place. You know what I mean? So we've had about 3 or 4 different teams. And so that was the dip. And then obviously, you go out west, you play Golden State, you play the Clippers, you play Portland, you play Denver. I can't remember who else. You're probably going to lose those games. You know what I mean? No matter how good you are, you go on the road, you try to win 2 or 3 of those, but, it's a good chance on those home court advantages that those teams have. You're probably going to lose. And that's what we did. And, it kind of snowballed a little bit. And then, we got back healthy, got into a better groove offensively and started getting back to our defensive mojo and helped us win some games. Probably should have ended the break winning 5 games in a row, but we let the Indiana game slip. Just them being more veteran savvier than we were at the time, and they stole one from us.
Definitely. And then obviously there's really so much young talent on your team, and it's just great seeing it. Obviously, there's no first person that comes down to everyone is obviously Collin Sexton. And just the show he's been putting on all year, the near All-Star campaign that many people think maybe he really had a really good shot at getting one. And then as well, the monstrous 2 games he had against the Brooklyn Nets, which were really improbable wins that really made everyone say, oh, wow, the Cavs are really really have something special that can progress over the next 2 years. Being that it's your first year, maybe when you first met him, just with this intensity and stuff, did anything really stick out to you that really has he been proven to you all season long?
Yeah, well, Collin is one of those guys who just works extremely hard. His line is always, I got to work harder. I got to work harder. And when you got that type of mentality, you're only going to get better. You're only going to improve. You're only going to have an opportunity to make an all-star team. People are going to start talking about you because, I mean, he works his tail. He's probably, to be honest with you, other than maybe Dirk, he's probably the hardest working basketball player I've been around. I mean, his work ethic is crazy. As much as he stays on the court. He's always in the gym. He's lifting weights. We was on a Zoom call. He was lifting weights while we was on the Zoom call. You know what I mean? He's always flicking his wrist. It's just one of those things like he works extremely hard. And when you work that hard, you're going to have great success. He's not a point guard. He's a 2-guard. He knows that. We know that. So we play him at the 2, and he goes out there and gets buckets.
I imagine everyone on the Zoom call, like having a really important conversation. He's just sitting there curling on the side or something. Right. It's funny thinking about that.
Yeah, but I think everybody knows that. Everybody understands. He's always trying to do something to improve his game. Collin Sexton's life is all about basketball, all about getting better, and all about trying to win games for his team.
And there's definitely the guys you want on your team. And it's great
Mm-hmm.
to think about maybe not even just the present, but just 2, 3, 4 years from now. And what the future is going to look like for him and for the team. Most recently, obviously, in terms of guys that have really been playing well and just new additions to the team would be Jarrett Allen. Everyone's talking about him and how he's been playing really well. So what have you, did you guys expect him to play this well coming to the team where he's putting up numbers? I'm seeing him on Twitter all the time with first player in this to have exactly this stat line. How shocking was that? And what have you seen?
You never know what's going on with somebody in another place, right? He's always been just a pick and roller. And, we got here, we're young. We know he's going to be a part of the core for a long time. So we put him in other, situations that he hadn't been in before. And obviously he was uncomfortable with it at first. And he's getting more and more comfortable with it. He has more talent than what Brooklyn allowed him to show or display, shall I say. And we're reaping the benefits from it. He's getting more and more confidence. He's learning his teammates more and more each day, and they're learning him and getting him in better situations to score more points. Because I don't think anybody thought he could score as many points as he has since he's gotten here. He's just shooting threes. I mean, Brooklyn will never let him shoot. There's them pick and you roll. We're posting him up. We're giving him opportunities to go ISO. So the talent is there. He works extremely hard. We just got to find a way to make sure we keep him this offseason.
I don't know, so cool to think about that. And he was maybe a lot of guys talk about 3-and-D guys. He was maybe like a D&D guy, where that's kind of where everyone was kind of placing him in that pigeonhole. But it's great to think about how you can break that mold and find ways to find something special. Kind of continue on this thing of new, with new additions, guys that are in the first year with the Cavs, with Isaac Okoro and how he was the 5th pick. How has he kind of been? How is this kind of shaped out for him? And where do you see him going? Like how maybe have you guys been using him to get the best out of that young talent?
Yeah, the 5th pick, man, a lot of pressure on the guy who comes out and be the 5th pick. But Rook, Isaac, he has even demeanor. You never know when he's playing bad. You never know when he's playing well. You never know when somebody scores on him. You never know when coach is yelling at him. He just has that even demeanor, even kill. So what we've just been trying to do with him is, put him on the best player on the perimeter, whether it's LeBron or whether it's, Kyrie Irving, doesn't matter. 1 through 3, we're going to put him out there and let him take his lumps this year, to understand that his defensive importance is going to be huge for us in the future. And the other thing we're trying to do is we have him become a better shooter, a more consistent shooter, and a more confident shooter, and just be more aggressive on the offensive end, because we all understand that we can't win championships in Cleveland if Isaac Okoro is not an offensive threat, if he's just a defensive guy. We got to make sure that he's an offensive threat as well. So we're working on that each and every day. Mainly to build the confidence in him on the offensive side of the basketball, to take some chances, take some risks out there and be aggressive, because the talent is there. I tell him all the time, you don't become the 5th pick in the NBA without having great talent. So don't get to the NBA and stop shooting. You've been shooting your whole life. So be aggressive on the offensive end. And, the last 3 weeks, he's really done a great job of being more aggressive. So he's getting better. But, he's a very young rookie, just turned 20. I think it was 3 or 4 weeks ago. So he's, just trying to feel his way in the basketball world.
Super cool. And then one more player that I'm really curious about is someone that I've had a couple of Canton Charge coaches on the show, and they keep on raving about Dean Wade. And him being a two-way guy, right? All I see, Coach Tabaldi, I think always, or actually all of them, Coach Neal, Coach Jordan, they always post on their Instagram stories, just videos of him saying like, "Oh, look at what he's doing in the league." Obviously, it's not something that was really happening like when you were playing, where guys are on 2 ways and going back and forth. But now you're seeing guys like him that are able to live that dream, going back and forth. How do you see him adjusting to that and actually getting minutes and being a really solid player on an NBA team?
Yeah, the first day I got here, I wouldn't say the first day, maybe the first week of just having him in the gym and working him out. I told him all the time, Dean, you're an NBA player. You're an NBA rotational player now. I can't be the only one to believe that. You have to believe that, because he struggles with his confidence as well. Coming in, not being drafted, going to Kansas State, not winning a lot of games at Kansas State, coming from a small town. Everything's against him. And, it's one of those things that he reminded me of myself, because, I went to a non-basketball powerhouse. I'm from a small town, So sometimes you come from those situations, you don't really understand or truly believe if you belong. And he didn't believe fully, and now he's believing. Then he's behind Kevin Love, Larry Nance Jr., 2 big-time 4 men in the NBA. So he gets to compete against them each and every day, so he gets better. And then when both of those guys go down, he's ready to provide that spark similar to Troy Daniels did for us in Houston. And he's playing extremely well right now. Hopefully we can get healthy and hopefully he can continue to stay in the rotation. But it's part of the NBA too, is ups and downs. He just got to make sure he's ready when we call his number.
The rest of the season is going to be so exciting. And once we get out of the All-Star break and the second half's underway, I really can't wait to start watching more of these guys, hopefully continue to prove what you already know is that, number one, Dean Wade's an NBA player and that a lot of these other guys that we spoke about are the real deal, which is super important. Yeah. Moving over to kind of stuff outside the NBA that you do with like the Greg Buckner Basketball Academy. What did that look like? But what made you kind of think about starting your own academy and how's that been working out?
Yeah, well, like I said earlier, I was, just being around my son. My son was 6, and I had a bunch of nephews that was just around and played the game in the neighborhood and things like that. And, when you got a bunch of nephews, you're going to have a bunch of other boys floating around, hanging out. And we just started, my brother played at Duke, so we just got together and started to build that academy. We had some girls as well who fizzled out on us because they was like, no, this is too tough. But we just started it just to enjoy being around the game and to give back to the next generation. Somebody gave the basketball knowledge and the time, more importantly, to us when we were young. And we wanted to do the same thing with the academy. And it's been going well. When I'm not working, I'm doing something with the youth when it comes to basketball, whether it's AAU or whether it's what we like to call rec league, those guys in the development stage of their game. And we're always doing something to try to, to enhance their game and enhance the game of basketball by giving them great knowledge.
So key to make sure they're sharing the game. And obviously, we always talk about the future with the Cavs, and these are 20, 30-year-old grown men, but there's also kids that really need that kind of care and attention too. I kind of outside from coaching, I thought it was interesting to see that you worked as an analyst for a little bit with Fox and the Mavs and the Pelicans. Was that a real passion of yours? Did you really enjoy doing it? And is there a chance we see you behind the mic again?
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's the best job in the world, man. Coaching is good, but doing TV is unbelievable. I mean, you get to be completely honest, because as a coach, you can't be completely honest. You know what I mean? Or you get fired or somebody be mad. But on TV, you can be completely honest. I'm a guy that loves to laugh. I get to laugh on TV. I get to joke with my co-hosts. I get to joke with my producers and things like that. We get to really have good, in-depth conversations, either on air or behind the scenes. I worked with some great people at Fox, still people I talk to, once or twice a week. Maybe not twice a week, once a week or once every other week. So it's one of those relationships that I probably will end up back on TV one day, but I'm not ready to go back right now. But, when my kids get out the house and they go do their things, it gives you more freedom to go do what you want to do and see them play in college and things like that.
Super cool to think about just all the different ways that you can kind of express this love for the game. Thinking about we kind of touched through all these parts in your career, parts in your basketball life. Is that we kind of went through everything really quickly and going from stop to stop. Just looking back in its entirety, is there like maybe a game or maybe even a specific moment in the game, whether it's you playing or you coaching on the sideline, that like one moment, only one that you just will never forget, ever?
Oh boy. Yeah, man. There was so many moments. I think the one moment I'll never forget is probably walking off that court in Golden State when I was in Dallas in 2007, where we truly was the best team in the NBA and had a chance to win a ring, and we didn't get it done. That moment sticks with me because you always think you're gonna get another chance at that time. I thought I was gonna come back to Dallas, talk to Avery, and ask him, what do I need to do to make sure that we don't have to go through this again where they got big guards and you don't trust to play me and things like that. But I never got that opportunity. So I got traded, day before training camp, thinking that I was going to build a team that was going to compete for a championship, to traded to a rebuilding franchise. That was probably the day that I'll never forget, and the situation that I'll never forget. And I try to remind these guys that I coach now that, don't take anything for granted, because you never know. You think you're going to be somewhere for a while, and you're not.
Hey, thank you so much for talking about that, because it's something that you don't really hear too much. It's great to know that you're able to shed that advice and that light onto so many young players that hopefully don't have to go through that, but potentially might. And it's super important to think about that, as well as the thinking about how you have a chance now in Cleveland, hopefully, to do a similar thing over the next few years. Which that's all. That's what's important.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things like, I was in a really good place in Denver and there's two things you do as a player. You got to maximize your income. So you chase the money thinking you're in a better situation and you want to be on a team that can win a championship. You thought you had that opportunity, which we did. But we didn't get it done. And I look back on it. Two things. I probably should have stayed in Denver and played with Melo and George Karl and those guys and try to build a championship with them. But if I wouldn't have made that decision, I probably wouldn't be coaching now. I probably wouldn't be with JB. We wouldn't be as close as we are. So, I mean, it's some positives and some negatives from that situation. But I never got that ring, so I'm still searching for that ring and that parade coach right now.
Of course, and that's what everything happens for a reason. That's what's so important to think about is that what didn't worked out in so many other ways, and what you're doing now with coaching is just so cool. So, Coach, I mean, thank you so much for coming on. This was awesome. Thinking about just all the different stuff, whether it's your playing career, coaching, everywhere you've been. It's funny because we're looking at your thing. I was like, there's so many things to talk about here. There's so many cool teams and so many moments and so many guys that really. It was really awesome speaking to you, and really can't wait to keep in touch and reconnect again because what you're doing now, it's so cool, and can't wait to see this Cavs team really take off after this All-Star break. Yeah,
I appreciate you reaching out to me, and for sure we'll stay in touch, and I'd love to come on your show anytime you need me. Just give me a holler, and we'll make it happen.
Awesome.
Thanks for listening to Gen Z Hoops. Make sure to follow, like, and subscribe on Instagram, LinkedIn, and all major social media platforms at Gen Z Hoops. You can tune in and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and every other podcast platform on the planet. Get ready for the next episode.